G'day guys, good to see ya. This is I Read Reddit, and today I'm reading some malicious compliance stories. Now, if you're not malicious or compliant, you're gonna love this one. Smash that subscribe button right now and get ready for some good ass stories. This was a long time ago, but I remember it clearly. We moved into a community with tight space in between our house and our neighbors, and we didn't like them being able to see into our kitchen. We put up a bunch of plants, costing thousands, but my parents thought it would be worth it. A week later, my parents awoke to the plants completely chopped down. My father was furious and marched down to our neighbor's house. He told my father the plants were on his property line, therefore he had total right to take them down. He warned that if anything were to go on his property again, he would report us to the authorities immediately. Later that day, my father called the company that put in the plants, and with the warranty, we could have them replanted next week for no charge. We made sure there was no way it was on our neighbor's property. However, a few days later, we caught him chopping them down at 2 a.m. We called the police upon obstruction of property, and after a chat with my neighbor, he decided to call a professional and mark his property line. My father agreed. A few days later, I got home to find orange tape in my neighbor's yard. Apparently his fence was 11 feet over our property line. We watched as he took his fence down, completely furious. Within the next month, we were enjoying our new space and privacy in our backyard, and my neighbor ended up losing 1/4 of his backyard. My neighbor ended up having to pay almost $10,000 for the destruction of our property, and we got to plant our plants again. TLDR, my neighbor chopped down our plants because he claimed we were on his property. After calling a professional, he lost 11 feet of his backyard and had to pay for destruction of property, and we got to keep our plants. I used to be a bartender and manager at a small family-owned restaurant. We had this one customer who I'll call D. It's short for douchebag. Anyways, he used to be a really nice guy, always fun to talk to, had interesting stories, the works. However, after about 8 months of him being a regular, he asked me out. I, very politely and kindly, turned him down, and my god, you would have thought I threatened his mum with the way he reacted. So, following that point, he turned into a giant douchebag, always snapping at me, both literally and figuratively, complaining about food that he had never had an issue with before, etc. A couple of months later, we had some changes to our menu and some slight price changes. Notably, his favorite soup, elk chili, was 75 cents more. He stormed in and sat and ordered elk chili. I said, "Of course, I just want to make sure you're aware of that change." He snapped at me and said, "How dumb do you think I am? I can read." Okay, my dude, whatever you say. So, he gets his soup, his meal, a few beers, and a glass of one of our higher quality bourbons. I bring him the check and he flips out. "This is more than it was before. You never told me that it would be more. This is fraud. I'm not paying this. Fix it." Okay, I can do that. However, on the check, I had also charged him for only happy hour price beers, which was significantly less than our regular prices. Happy hour ended before he even got there. I also charged him for a lower quality bourbon by the same company. Please note, the owner was okay with that since he was technically a regular and spent a lot of money there. So I fixed his check for him, but I fixed all of it. The new check was about $15 more than it was before. He was so mad that he was lost for words, and I took that time to show him how I fixed his check. He never came back on nights I was working after that. I don't work there anymore. I wonder how he's doing. My department is about 10 guys, all older and much more conservative than me. Their talks are mostly sexist, racist, homophobic, and elitist. To keep the peace, I keep the conversation light and work-related the few times our paths cross. Also, my desk is down the hall from the department in overflow, along with other miscellaneous workers, so overlap is minimal between us. My co-workers apparently complained to my boss that I was too quiet. Despite good work, I got a bad review for not talking. No raise for me. Fine. Next day, I was at my desk for at most 2 hours out of 8. Want to talk to me about how women are only good for sucking D? Let me tell you about how, as a bi guy, it felt to have a Marine S-ing my D. Let's unpack all of those ignorant comments of yours. We done arguing? Up next, random facts. No? Let me complain to you guys about my classes. Next, show me what you're doing and how. I already know, but I missed out on a raise because I wasn't engaging enough with everyone. So now everyone has to teach me something. You don't want to engage with me? It's okay. I can talk to the back of your head too. I like to monologue. When I got called into my boss's office at the end of the day, I explained why I got no work done in 8 hours. I get you're angry, but let's be honest here. If HR finds out about all the things we all did today, we would have an empty department. I got my raise, a request to stop harassing my co-workers, and motivation to look for another job. Edit. Since people seem to think I'm a new, entitled, antisocial employee who's too sensitive, I've been working there for 5 years, get along with everyone else. These engineers are well established in the company, and are friends with the owner, who looks the other way so long as work gets done. And I'm more than aware I'll be fired soon enough. Prior to being a bartender, I worked at a retail chain called Big W. I'm a nerd. I tend to switch to autopilot when tired, almost always at the end of shifts, and can be a dick when annoyed. Me in a nutshell. It's a slow Wednesday afternoon, the air conditioner is broken again, and it's about 5 degrees hotter than inside than outside. I'm in autopilot, rigor mortis smile on my face, and retail greetings are droning out of my throat. A guy walks into my register, demanding a refund for something trivial. Probably his panties were the wrong color. I don't remember. I inform him in a monotone voice that refunds are issued by my supervisor, not me. There's a surprisingly substantial line at the supervisor's desk, people wanting cigarettes, refunds, or information. He informs me that he's not waiting that long for something trivial. He demands I do it because even someone as dumb as you can do this. Well, that snapped me out of autopilot, and the smile fades. I repeat in a much more direct tone that only the supervisor can do refunds. The customer is having none of it. Refund my item, he demands again, saying it as very slowly as if I was the dumbest potato in the strawberry patch. I am unable to, he cuts me off, and he goes, I want to speak to your manager. I don't want to talk to you. Now, this is where people need to be careful with their words. As a cashier, I report directly to my supervisor, one of the two at the desk. They're in charge of me. My manager sits out the back managing the store, and usually never has to interact with customers unless the supervisor calls him. So, I nod, calling through the headset for my manager. Let's call him Fred. Fred's a great guy. He tells jokes, he's always ready to help his friends. He's a caring soul. He's also a mute, and after wrapping his ute around a tree as a teen, he's also deaf. As such, he knows Auslan, Australian Sign Language, but he can't read lips to save his life. I also can't speak Auslan at all. This probably took about 5 minutes for someone to alert Fred that he was needed, and for him to come down. All this time I'm smiling, but not saying a word to the gentleman, as he told me to. He comes up to the registers, sees it's me waving him down, and pulls out his PDA to communicate with me. What's up? Fred types. I take the PDA and type, customer had a complaint. Wants to speak to my manager, not me. Fred raises an eyebrow at me, and I just shrug. The guy is turning red with anger, probably thinking we're ignoring him. Fred turns to the guy, who launches into a full-on verbal assault that would curdle milk chocolate. Something about incompetent employees and terrible service. Fred just stands there. Eventually, the guy runs out of breath, and Fred has a chance to show him the PDA with the words, Sir, I am a deaf mute. Please use this to communicate with me. The guy practically screams and storms out of the store. So, a bit of backstory. My boyfriend's boss is a bit of a dick. Unfortunately, he's also his uncle. My boyfriend works in IT. He handles a lot of complaints regarding servers and general IT stuff. For the past 3 years, he's worked overtime for free. It's difficult to say no to family. He answers his personal phone and has to drive long distances to fix problems clients are having, sometimes at 10 at night. Recently, we've been trying to save money to make a life together, so my boyfriend decided to ask the boss to finally get paid for all the overtime hours he'll be working from now on. The boss is livid. He states that he will not pay my boyfriend overtime money and he shouldn't ask again, and he should be grateful for his job. He concludes by saying that there is no such thing as overtime in this business. Can you see where the malicious compliance comes in yet? So, my boyfriend does not answer any calls after 5 or before 8. The boss now has to place all of those calls and drive the ridiculous distances himself. Boyfriend gets called in and is asked why he isn't picking up his phone, because the clients are getting really upset at him. Boyfriend's answer? I'm sorry, but you said there's no such thing as overtime. I've never been so proud. This happened fairly recently. My work is fairly small and situated in a mall. We have a locker room, but it's unisex, so no one gets fully dressed there, but many people will change their tops. Most days I work 2 shifts, an early morning maintenance shift with a midday lunch shift, starting straight after I've finished the maintenance. My managers are really stingy with breaks, absolute legal minimum, clocked to the second. They'll also try and reschedule you for just under the hour requirement to avoid giving you another break. I.e., if you're due another break if you work 8 hours, they'll schedule you for 7 hours and 45 minutes. As a maintenance worker, I have a maintenance shirt, which I switch to a general uniform top whenever I come off maintenance. Since I'm female presenting, I wear a light shirt underneath for decency. Normally, it would only take me a few seconds to switch tops and jump back on the floor for my second shift. But a few weeks ago, my boss pulled me aside and told me that he didn't want me changing in the locker rooms anymore for hygiene reasons. Notably, they didn't tell any of the male co-workers who'd been doing the same thing for years. Now, I have to walk to the nearest bathroom, which is approximately 5 minutes away, just to get changed. Here's where the compliance comes in. There was an unspoken expectation that I would have to get changed during my break. But given how stringent my managers are, I really didn't want to gouge a large chunk out of my limited free time. Instead, every day, I deliberately leave a small amount of maintenance work left undone, maybe 10-15 minutes worth before my break, so I'd have to keep my maintenance shirt on to complete that work. Once that's done, I take a leisurely stroll to the nearest bathroom while clocked on to get changed. This is generally one of the busiest periods, early lunch rush, so managers often have to stop sitting and chatting in the office and cover me until I get back. My mum has worked for a major airline for 35 years plus. She started off as a gate agent, which back in the 90s included assigning seats right before departure. While working a flight to Fort Lauderdale, an older man approached the desk and didn't ask, request, or inquire, but demanded that his seat be changed. The following exchange took place. You need to change my seat. I'm not sitting in the middle seat. I want an aisle seat. I'm sorry, sir. We have a full flight today. Let me see if I can. Old man shoving his boarding pass in front of my mum's face. I don't care. You need to change my seat to an aisle seat. Certainly, sir. Let me see if I can. I don't care how you do it. Just get me an aisle seat. Certainly, sir. The old man was leaning against the counter, refusing to leave without a new boarding pass. My mum paged a different passenger. We'll call him Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith came up to the counter. Good afternoon, Mr. Smith. I'm sorry to bother you. This gentleman here is requesting an aisle seat, and I see that you are seated in one. Would you mind terribly if we upgraded you to first class so this gentleman can have your seat? Oh, sure, of course. Thank you, that's so kind of you. Old man, clearly flustered and outraged. But, I want the first class seat. Oh, the first class seat is a window seat, sir. You specifically and repeatedly requested an aisle seat. Here's your first boarding pass for your aisle seat. Have a pleasant flight. Next passenger, please. The old man's seat was originally in like row 10. Mum moved him to row 34, right next to a family with kids. Friendly reminder to always be polite to airline staff.